Jarvis, go get us a beer. The Broforce squad is set to do a bro back on the film that started the great MCU, the original Iron Man. I'm Matt Geiger, alongside our Marvel bro, Jeff Hornacek, grading this on our own 5 Infinity Gems, known as our 5 criteria. First being cast. So, Jeff, you're the Marvel guy. We'll throw it to you.
Thank you, Matt. How polite of you. I mean, what can you really say? This movie fucking started it all. And you have a lot of cool things to say about Downey and where he was at, so I'll leave that to you. But Terrence Howard I liked in the role of Rhodey. Honestly, him and Don Cheadle are kind of interchangeable. I would have been totally cool with either. I know he had some problems with Downey off set. I love Favreau in this. I know he likes to put himself in his own movies when he directs them. Jeff Bridges is an incredible villain, and this is the only movie that I've ever seen Gwyneth Paltrow in where I said, oh, wow, she actually has some personality as a human being, as Pepper Potts. So I think this is her quintessential role. And obviously everyone else did such a good job that people said, hey, comic book movies are a legitimate genre outside of the Christopher Nolan Batman films.
I'll just go back and just touch on each one. Jeff Bridges, Marvel gets a bad rap, and I even say it too, that they don't get villains right. They got him right because he could do any fucking character right. He's great in this. Terrence Howard, see ya, bro. You don't want to be part of a fucking franchise? Welcome to TV, because he's doing some TV fucking show now.
Seriously.
So, good riddance. I like Don Cheadle anyway, because he's my boy from Ocean's 11. Favreau directs Disney movies. Okay, I go over him. Gwyneth Paltrow, I loved her in this. Once you said she's in a lot of chick flicks, I'm not a big Gwyneth Paltrow fan, but she fits to me as Pepper Potts. She is Pepper Potts. Downey Jr. resurrected his MFing career, even more so than Pirates did for Johnny Depp. Downey Jr. was in the fucking tank before this, and now he's probably the biggest get in Hollywood now. He's doing his own movies, and he deserves it, man. Dude, we can't hate anybody for doing alcohol and drugs. I mean, we've preached that on this podcast, so good thing. Yeah, we're drinking right now, so good thing he's back. Love him as Iron Man. He's perfect as Iron Man, and I don't know how they're going to recast him when they do the entire switch up. So, story, you've read these comics as a kid, so grace us with your presence on the story.
Yeah, so first off, Geiger, you and I are huge fans of origin stories when they're done right and they're slow cooked. Don't rush me into seeing the suit. Don't throw me into the fucking villain. Make me care. Make me give a shit. It's exactly what this movie did, dude. It takes a guy who is born on second base, thought he hit a double his whole life. He's cocky, he's arrogant, and he gets put in his place, and he learns a lesson. And as a result, there's a character through line that matters, and the reason he becomes Iron Man makes total sense. On top of all that, great performances, and like you said, I just got to piggyback on this real quick. When Disney, or I guess Marvel at the time, they weren't owned by Disney, it said, hey, we're starting this whole franchise, but before we do that, let's try and make one movie. Robert Downey Jr. is the lead. People must have been like, did he pass you his crack pipe? Because what is wrong with you?
Did he pass the drug test?
Yeah, and he works in the story because I think there's a lot of him in Tony Stark. It's incredible. It does a great job because there hadn't been all these other movies to set up yet. It lays the perfect foundation for this universe, and the end credits scene says it best. Mr. Stark, you become part of a much bigger universe. You just don't realize it yet.
My take on the story is, yeah, it's an origin story, but besides that, I think it's so big for this reason. It came out in 2008. We don't get too serious on this pod, but 9/11 is still pretty fresh in people's mouths. I don't know if we caught Bin Laden yet, but this first couple scenes is basically him just kicking the shit out of people in like Iraq or Afghanistan or wherever the hell they are. And I think a lot of Americans kind of wave their flag at that. It's like, goddamn right. Like, that's what we want our superhero to do. It came out at a very perfect time. I don't know if you could do that now because people might, picket or kneel about it, but I think that's why it was so big. People really didn't know anything about Iron Man. If you're a big comic guy like us, yeah, but most of your average people that just like Batman and Superman didn't know too much about this character, and now he is an A-plus player in Marvel, ahead of probably even Wolverine and Spider-Man, I would have to say. Yeah. Everyone's Iron Man for Halloween. Iron Man comics have skyrocketed, and it's definitely because of this movie. So, pretty much this whole movie is the best scene, but if you had to just pick one, what would it be?
Man, this is tough. The scene where he first takes flight in the Mark II is incredible with it. Yeah, I can fly. And our first introduction to Jarvis. But my favorite scene, because now that we go back, it was just the perfect way to start their relationship and set everything up, is when he meets Agent Phil Coulson at the benefit that he goes to. And the best line is, he says, "Hi, Mr. Stark. I'd like to talk to you about what happened to you in Golmira." He's like, "Okay, who are you with?" "I'm with the Strategic Homeland Intervention Enforcement and Logistics Division." He goes, "You got to get a new name for that." It's the first thing Tony Stark
really
says.
Long.
Yeah. It was our first introduction to S.H.I.E.L.D. It was hilarious. We got to meet
Phil. He even started breathing before he ended the sentence, too. He's like, whoa, you're not even done yet?
He's like at the bar looking for Pepper, does not want to fucking talk to Phil Coulson. He's like, yeah, you got to get a new name for that, man. That was probably my favorite scene, and it was actually happening at a very critical time in Pepper and Tony's relationship, so sort of twofold there. How about you?
Man, anytime Downey talks in any of these movies is my favorite scene because how he delivers lines and stuff, it's proven that he's not only Iron Man, he's just a great actor and a top-notch guy in Hollywood. But mine, since this is an origin story, and you know I love a good slow cook, and we don't get enough of this in origin stories, where Batman, or if you've seen Daredevil on Netflix, they go out with the ski mask. The first Iron Man suit was not very technologically sound. All he had was a rocket launcher. It looked like a medieval times. He looked kind of like the Mountain from Game of Thrones. And I guess I'm really close to this scene because if you're ever in Vegas, go to Treasure Island next. They have a Marvel experience, and you can see a lot of his suits. And I always thought this was the coolest fucking suit because he basically made it in a cave whenever he was captured. That's my favorite scene, wherever he kicks the shit out of everybody, then flies out of there, and then he just kind of just hitches a ride to America. Very well done, very well directed, very well action sequence scene. So, impacts on pop culture. Need we say more? I mean, it started the MCU.
Started the MCU, made Robert Downey Jr. a viable option to cast, not only a viable option to cast in a movie again in Hollywood, but a bankable Hollywood star. I mean, this is one of, in our Comic Movie Madness tournament, which you should go back and check out, for impacts on pop culture, there's very few films in the entire comic book or superhero genre that can even chest up to this movie because of what it did. So, massive, dude.
I'll have to eat crow and swallow my own words on this. Whenever I first saw this in theaters, I was like, okay, cool. Like, Marvel made a good movie. Good for them. I knew X-Men wasn't really under their umbrella. It was under Fox's. As a DC fan, though, I was not scared at all. Like, what are they going to come out with next? Captain America? I mean, that'll be kind of cool. They'll make 4 movies and then maybe make one with them all together. I had no clue that it would be the giant it is and that DC is trying to catch up to them today. I mean, we had Nolan, like, in our corner. We had the fucking whole world in our hands. And then Iron Man comes out, and not only when I saw it, I'm like, this is probably a top 5 comic book movie of all time. I still feel that. It is a very great movie, but I wasn't really thinking it would go anywhere. Man, was I wrong. Because this is the biggest fucking franchise, probably besides Star Wars, going right now.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look like it's slowing down anytime soon with Infinity War coming out in the next couple months. So rewatchability for me, dude, anytime it's on. If I'm, leaving in 30 minutes and this is on, I'll watch this for 30 minutes. I'll pop it in whenever it's a Friday night. I don't feel like going out and having a couple beers. This is a very fun movie to watch. I think it's the best Marvel standalone movie, bar none. Maybe Spider-Man Homecoming gives it kind of a run for its money, but I love this film. I'll watch it anytime it's on TV.
Yeah, the problem is it's not on TV that much. And I feel like because there's been so many MCU movies since this, it's kind of forgotten. I know that sounds crazy because it was our introduction to Iron Man, but people don't really mention it that much. I mean, people say it's one of their favorite movies, but it's not in the mainframe of people's minds because there's been the Guardians and the Avengers movies and all that. But yeah, great rewatchability here. It doesn't have so many like great action set pieces, but that's because at this point Marvel was focusing much more on story and developing characters, just trying to take the first step before they tried to run a whole marathon. So it's an incredible movie, man. I think pound for pound, it's probably the second or third best Marvel movie, and to say that it's behind the Avengers and the original Guardians of the Galaxy is a huge compliment to a film. So it's just an incredible movie, man. I wish it was on TV more. I don't know why it's not.
I think FX is more focusing on the second, third one. I've seen that on a lot. They're just focusing more on the more recent Marvel films. Like you said, there's so many of them that I see it on FX sometimes, but you're right, not as much as we should. All right, guys, check us out. Website, broforcesquad.com. We got our blog up there. We got our Hall of Fame on there. Twitter, @Bro4Squad. Tweet us questions. We'll answer them on our weekly episodes. And we're on YouTube and iTunes. Be sure to subscribe to both and check out our other reviews. We're doing the whole fucking trilogy.
Peace.